Hi crafty people, I'm Ruth and I'm going to introduce my Dino Dig kit today. I'm so excited, he's my favorite. Before we get started unpackaging him, don't forget to subscribe down below and you can leave comments as well down below. My website to get the kits is linked down below as well at ruthtillmandesigns.com. So let's get started and open him up. All my kits come with full color pictures so you can reference them. This one is one of my favorite new ones. My boyfriend asked me to do a dinosaur, and instead of a regular dinosaur, I did a Dino Dig. So he has a amazing little line drawing so that you can reference where the lines are on him. And then on the other side, he has all the colors that are included with the kit and where the colors should go and what kind of stitches you use with those colors. The stitch guide is a very helpful guide, and those stitches that are used in this kit and in others are all on the stitch guide. Every kit has the same stitch guide, so you are never without how to stitch the certain stitches. He is so cute. He's printed on organic cotton through spoonflower.com. I hand design them and print them, and they come with a beautiful French embroidery needle. Actually, it's chenille needle, and it has a nice big eye so that you can put your floss through and use it, and it's very sharp. So there he is, and he comes with a background. This background is going to be to make him into a pillow, and it's a nice like rocky looking background. And then he comes with enough matching thread to do all the stitches that are recommended in the kit, but you can do as simple as a running stitch, so a 5-year-old can do these kits up to any age. But a beginner can do just a simple running stitch, and you don't have to have a machine to finish him. I will show you how to finish him with a simple running stitch all the way around and turn him into a pillow. So let's get started. So here he is. Let's open him up, and we're going to pull the needle out, and we're going to get the needle threaded because we're going to start on the bones with the cream colored thread. My kits use 6 strands, and there's 2 ways to do the strands. And the first way is to split the thread. So you find the middle of the thread and you split it open 3 and 3, so 2 separate pieces of 3. And what you want to do is carefully open it up and let it wind off to the end. So what I do is I let it pull off my finger and wind to the end on one side, and then you do the same thing. If you go too fast or if you don't let it unwind on its own, it will knot up, so be careful. And then you have 2 pieces, and we'll thread them, and this thread, the half piece, can be doubled, and so you double your ends and then you put your knot to the doubled ends, and it creates a nice secure piece of thread to sew with. This is very helpful for younger children because then the needle doesn't come off as they're sewing. It's on there. So I'm going to do a quick knot here, and then I'm going to demonstrate my knot in the next section. So here's my quick quilter's knot, and there it is. The other way is to just thread all 6 strands at the same time. The issue with this is that you're always going to have a tail on the end or a piece on the end that's loose. And if you don't hold that piece as you're sewing, then you're going to pull it off the needle all the time, and it's going to get frustrating. So that's where smaller, younger children get frustrated because they don't know how to hold it, and it can just pull off like that. So let's do our knot on this one. It's called a quilter's knot. So what you want to do is want to create a circle, and you want to point your needle and your ends together in the circle. Grab your piece of thread and wind it, and then grab the wind and pull it all the way down. So now let's put our piece on a hoop. The hoops that I sell have a lip on it. It says this side up. I put this side down, or the lip down on the table. I put my piece on the solid hoop on top, and then the hoop with the hardware or the screw goes on top of that and gets pushed on top of the smaller hoop on the underneath part. That hoop needs to be tightened as tight as possible. You can loosen it to put it on and then tighten it as tight as possible, because you want your work to be tight so that when you're pulling your thread, it doesn't cinch the fabric or make the fabric wrinkled. So here I'm going to be pulling it around and making it taut or tight so it's like a drum. Now let's get started with the white. We're going to do a back stitch. So I'm going to start on this one section. You take a stitch past that stitch, and then you go back in to the point or the end of the last stitch. So you take a stitch past and go back in the last stitch. And that's how you do a back stitch. We're going to do back stitch all the way around all the light tan lines that are attached to the bones. And as you can see, I've done a bunch of bones here, and I'm going to show you how to do a knot on the back. There's the simplest way is not to let your string get any longer than your finger, or if you have excess string, you cut it off at the length of your finger. So you just want a finger length string, and you cut it off, and then what I do is I split the thread from the fabric going up and tie a simple double knot. This way, most children and kids can do this as well as adults. It's a very simple knot to do and easy to learn. And then you just cut off the excess. The excess will get in the way if you don't cut it off. Now we're going to do the dirt. I finished the bones, and we're going to do the dirt around the skeleton. The dark dirt is dark brown, and the light dirt around that is the taupe. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a different stitch similar to the back stitch that's called the split stitch. It adds a different texture. And so we're going to go up, take a stitch, go back down, and just like the back stitch, we're going to go past the stitch. And instead of going back down on the end of the stitch, we're going to go in the middle of the stitch. And that's where it's called the split stitch, because we're splitting the middle open to make a textural stitch. So do that for both, all the way around for both dirt areas to add that texture. So now that I finished all the dirt outlines, I'm going to be filling in the rocks with the silver gray and the dark gray, matching the color of the internal of the rock. So we're going to do a fill stitch. You go up. So what you want to do is you want to start in the middle of the shape. You go up one end, down all the way across the other end, and then you go up again right next to the stitch you just did, and go across again over and over again. And you're just putting long stitches right next to each other. And if you go up and down on the edge of the shape, what you're going to do is create the shape pattern in this really nice soft fill stitch. Now I finished the one side, and I'm going to go back the other way. So I'm going to go back to the middle and go the other way, doing the exact same pattern. The reason we do this is because it is very hard to find a straight line on the edge of a curved shape or an odd shape. And so this way we can find a nice straight line to make the fill stitch look straight and even. Let's play with our spider here. I got some black thread on my needle, and I'm going to just follow the sections of straight lines on all of the little feet and then go up to the antenna. And then we're going to do a fill stitch on him as well, and we'll treat that the same exact way as we did the rocks. And we'll start, I'm going to start kind of in the upper head area of the circle and go up, and then I'll go down from there. So here I'm starting there and going up. It's just to help me find a straight line so that it will look even and nice. Here again, I go up on one side, down on the other, and then I go right next to that, following the same pattern or the outline of the spider. And we're just going to go up and down, and then we're going to go, once we finish one side, we'll go back to the middle and fill it in on the rest. Let's move on to the plants. The outline color pretty much matches what the thread color is, and then some of them I'm going to put some inside color and fill color, but it depends on the plant and you can play around with it as you wish. So this one I'm going to use the dark rust to put on my little succulent here, and I'm just going to take little stitches around the center part to create the center. So just little stitches to match what the shape is, and then you're going to go up and down the points of the leaves, and you're going to create a shape similar to what's there, but it doesn't have to be exact, because once we fill it in and we add all the different stitches, it'll look like a little organic plant. Here I've moved on to filling in this succulent. I'm going to be doing a V texture, so you go up one end and down the other, creating a little V pattern in the middle of each leaf. And once it's filled in, it'll have this nice soft texture and look like a succulent. Now I'm moving on to the long little succulent that's near that one. And this one I'm going to be using some of my stitches to hold back the outline, mainly because I'm not filling this one in and I just want the outlines to be very specific. So I do a stitch and then I pull up for the next stitch, but I'm going to put it underneath that stitch. And then when I put that second stitch in, what it's going to do is it's going to pull the first stitch away and create a slightly curved line. Another way of doing this is to go under a stitch you've already made. So I'm going to do a stitch, go under that last stitch, and then go back down in, and again it pulls it away and makes a curved line. So you just keep doing that to all of these. You can play around. You can also do smaller stitches, like a back stitch on these. Another way to make a curved stitch is a petal stitch version, which is you go up one end and then you go down to the tip of where you're going to make your curve, and then you want to go up in the middle of that line, or where the curve is supposed to be, and go on the inside or on the outside and pull it on the other side and pull it away, and take a tiny little stitch holding that last piece of thread in place. So here I'm going to do this green on these little succulents that is just little X's pretty much, or little stars. So we're just going to go up one end, down the other, and we're going to just keep doing crosses. Don't forget to keep your work tight in the hoop. I continually tighten my work. And so we're just going to do little crosses. The secret to these little guys is that there's one smaller stitch than the others, and you want to take that one at the end of all your stitches, and that secures all of the longer stitches a little better, and it makes it look complete. Now let's do this purple and green succulent, and I'm going to use this dark purple and do a little star in the middle, and then we're going to do just simple V stitches all the way around, connecting the stitches at their points. And I'm going to do something similar with the one that I did with the rust and I'm going to take a gray green and fill that in as well, and it'll just add a very nice texture to it. I found that when I just only did the purple, the green was lost, so adding that green thread makes it pop out again. This last succulent is been done with a petal stitch, and the petal stitch is done where you go up on the point and down on the point, or up on the side and down on the side. You go up in the middle before you end your stitch of the loop, and then you go down on the other side of the loop and pull your loop to make it a soft petal look. So here I am again going up, down in the same point. Don't finish your loop, let the loop just be there, and go up in the middle top of the petal, and then pull your loop, and then secure that stitch on the other side of the thread. And then I'm going to finish up with the beetle. I used fill stitch and some just regular stitches to outline him and add some color. You go and have fun with this guy. He was a really fun little guy to do, and we're finished with this, and we're going to start putting our Dino Dig together into a pillow form. So let's turn him over to the back. We need to mark our back part so that we know where to sew. So what I do is a little bit, 5/8 of an inch, a little bit after 1/2 of an inch, and I make marks, and then all the way around I draw a line 5/8 of an inch around the pattern. And here I have that. Now we need to remind ourselves that we have to stuff it. So we're going to find a flat place to stuff it, and I'm going to mark a 2-inch mark to separate for opening and stuffing. So I'm going to start on one end and go and sew the other end. Now let's get our backing, and we're going to put our backing down, and we're going to have that facing the side, the right side up, and then we're going to take our dino and have the right side down touching the right side of the backing. So right sides together, and we're going to pin it. To pin it, you push the pin in, and then I use my finger and push a pin back up and out the fabric. And you want the head of the pin in the middle, and we're just going to pin around and get it secure so that we can do our stitching. So now I'm going to get my needle and thread ready, and I'm going to start going up and down with a simple running stitch. I'm starting at the mark where I marked it to leave the opening, and I'm going to go up and down. There's 2 ways to go up and down. You just do a simple up and down. Don't forget to make them very small so that the stuffing doesn't pop out after you're finished. So let's do a few more stitches. Oh, look here, I got a little knot. Usually these knots are because the thread is a little twisted, so what you want to do is just loosen the thread and untwist it a little bit and let the knot out. And then you can keep going with your stitching. It happens to everybody. Don't pull on it or you'll just create a worse knot. So now let's do a gather stitch. So I'm just going to go on my needle and push it on my needle over and over again and take small stitches, about 3 or 4 small stitches, and then you push your needle out and pull it. And the secret here is to not let it totally gather on the string or the thread. You want to lay it flat. So what I do is I use my finger and I push it out flat so that it's not cinched down. Because see, if you have it cinched down, your final product is going to look gathered all the way around, and you don't want that look. You want a nice flat pillow. So let's just keep going around and finish stitching it. So here I am at the end, or my end mark for my opening, and I'm going to take a little stitch, and before I finish my stitch I'm going to put it through the loop and pull it, and it creates a knot, and then you're going to cut that knot off so that it doesn't get in your way as you're stuffing it. Now we have a lot of excess fabric on this, so we're going to want to take some scissors and cut the excess fabric off. I like to cut about 1/4 of an inch away from my stitching. You don't want to cut too much closer or you're going to cut into your stitching. So let's cut all the way around with some nice sharp scissors. I use my table as a guide to help me keep things straight. and go all the way around him. After you're done going all the way around, because he's curved, we're going to want to clip him all the way around on the curves. These clips help keep the stuffy from getting cinched up on the outside edges. When you have a curved piece of fabric, it can gather or cinch, and we want a nice flat pillow. I'm going to turn him right side out and push him out and get him all flat and ready to go. What I do is I push the edges out before I start stuffing him, so I know all my edges are showing so that I know where to stuff exactly. I use a chopstick to help push the edges out and to help stuff it. So here we are stuffing it. You want to do a little bit of stuffing at a time, and don't push the stuffing tight until it's into the pillow itself. If you make it tight before the pillow, you're going to get balled up stuffing inside the pillow, and you want the pillow to feel fluffy. So don't ball your stuffing up before you put them in the pillow. So let's make sure that he's nice and stuffed up. Don't hesitate to push more stuffing in him. You don't want too much or too tight, but you also don't want it too loose, or you're gonna lose his shape and he's gonna become a little flat. So here he is, and now we have to sew the end up that we had open. And to do that, we have to put a little pin in to help keep it closed. So what I do is I like to make sure all my stuffing is away from the opening so that I'm not sewing stuffing up in my thread. It can get tangled in the thread and look ugly. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to put them on the edge, and I'm going to use my fingers to get the folds nice and even. And then I'm going to put a pin in, pinch it and put a pin in to help keep that pinch closed as I'm sewing that shut. The stuffing wants to keep it open. So to do this, I'm going to take a needle and thread, I'm going to keep a pinch going, and I'm going to start right near the thread that I had from sewing it closed, and I'm going to take a little stitch. So there's two ways to stitch this closed. You're going to either go from the front to the back on the very edge, around and round, a whip stitch, but you want to do it on the very, very edge of the fold. That way you don't see the whip stitch that easily. Another way to stitch it closed is called a ladder stitch, and you're going to take your needle and go sideways from right to left in the top part of the fabric where the fold is of the fabric, and then go right next to where the stitch came out and do the same thing on the back part of the fabric. And you go just back and forth from top to back, right to left. And as you do that and you pull it closed, it'll actually create a hidden seam that you will not be able to see the stitching. So now here we are finishing up closing that opening, and we're going to take a little stitch to make a knot. So I'm going to take one stitch, take a second stitch on top of that stitch, and before I close the loop of that, I'm going to go through the loop to create my knot. Now if I cut that off right at the thread where I made the knot, it'll just come out. So what I want to do is stick it in, pop it out through the middle, out of the fabric a little bit, and then cut it off, and that creates a little tail inside. And here he is, all done. Let's look at him, and he looks just so comfy and sweet. Here he is. I love the stitching on all the bones and the detail that it gives, and the colors make it pop that are on the plants and the bugs. So have fun making him. Let me know if you have any questions, and don't forget to subscribe down below. See you next time.